Hey everyone, welcome to The Explainer. I am so incredibly excited to get into today's topic because, honestly, it strikes at the absolute core of how our entire society functions. We're talking about legal personhood and capacity. Now, you might be sitting there thinking, well, I'm alive, so obviously I'm a person, right? But the law, it sees things a little differently. Today, we're going to explore this fascinating legal duality between what it actually means to legally exist versus having the power to actually act in the real world. Because, spoiler alert, they are not the same thing. And once you understand the difference, it completely changes how you view contracts, businesses, and honestly, even your own basic rights.
So I want to pose this question directly to you. What makes you a person in the eyes of the law? Think of it kind of like spawning into a massive multiplayer video game. When your character pops into existence, boom, you're on the map. You take up space. The game recognizes you're there. That right there, that's your legal existence. But just because you've spawned in doesn't mean your character has the leveled up ability to, trade items, or buy property, or start a guild. You're probably restricted until you hit a certain level. That distinction between just being on the board and actually having the power to make a move, that's the whole core premise of our journey today.
Here's our roadmap for today. Section 1 will cover the two sides of personhood. Section 2, juridical capacity, meaning who actually exists. Section 3, capacity to act and taking action. And finally, Section 4, the restrictions meant for protecting the vulnerable. Let's get right to it.
Section 1. The two sides of personhood.
Okay, let's dive into this. On one side of the coin, we've got juridical capacity. The strict legal definition is the fitness to be the subject of legal relations. But think of this as your passive ability to just have rights. Simply because you have this, you can inherit property or be the beneficiary of a trust. You just receive it. On the flip side, we have capacity to act, which is the power to do acts with legal effect. This is active. This is you out there signing a lease, selling a car, getting married. So the absolute crucial takeaway here is that just because you have the fitness to be a subject, just because you're on the board, doesn't mean you automatically have the power to step up and make a legally binding move.
Moving right along to Section 2. Juridical capacity. Who exists?
First up, naturally we have natural persons. That's you and me, human beings. The law basically says that juridical capacity is inherent in every single natural person, and you only lose it when you die. It's the ultimate baseline. But notice this really fascinating caveat about conceived children. While birth usually determines personality, a conceived child is actually considered born for all purposes that are favorable to it, as long as it's born later under some specific conditions. It's pretty wild. Even before you take your first breath, the law literally reaches into the womb to grant you juridical capacity, allowing you to, say, receive a donation or an inheritance, purely because it's a net positive for you.
But right here is where the law throws a massive curveball our way. Humans aren't the only players on the legal game board. Enter juridical persons, which are established under Article 44 of the Civil Code. These are artificial beings created by operation of law. The law literally breathes life into non-human entities, granting them a juridical personality completely separate and distinct from the humans who actually run them. It's kind of like legal magic, right? And it's for sure the very foundation of our entire modern economy.
Let's break down exactly how these different entities get that magical spark of life. First off, the state and its political subdivisions. They get their personality through constitutional law, purely by operation of law. They exist because the whole system exists. Next, look at corporations under Republic Act No. 11232. They don't just legally exist because a group of friends had a cool business idea. No, their legal spawning moment happens specifically on the exact date the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission, issues their certificate of incorporation. Until that SEC stamp hits the paper, legally, they're basically a ghost. Finally, cooperatives, governed by RA 9520. These are autonomous associations meant to achieve social and economic needs. Their juridical personality is officially granted by the Cooperative Development Authority, the CDA, when they get their certificate of registration. So each of these artificial beings has a very specific, defined moment when their legal existence actually begins.
All right, on to Section 3. Capacity to act. Taking action.
Now, before we talk about this specific number, we have to understand a crucial baseline: the presumption of existence. The law generally presumes you have the capacity to act unless some specific restriction applies to you. But how do you fully, officially acquire that unrestricted capacity? Well, 18. In the eyes of the law, this number is literally your golden ticket. Remember,
Capacity to act is the power to do acts with legal effect. And unlike your inherent, built-in juridical capacity, the capacity to act has to be fully acquired and, importantly, it can be lost.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is just how absolute this shift is. Under Republic Act No. 6809, hitting age 18 triggers what the law officially calls emancipation. You've attained the age of majority. Overnight, two massive things happen. First, it completely wipes out parental authority over your person and your property. Done. Second, it qualifies you to be responsible for all acts of civil life. You suddenly hold the controller. You can sign binding contracts, you can take on massive debt, you can buy property, you have fully 100% unlocked the capacity to act.
Let's transition to our final part, Section 4, Restrictions, Protecting the Vulnerable. You see, the state doesn't just restrict the capacity to act for no reason, it strictly controls it to protect the vulnerable. If we look at Republic Act 1159-6, we see the restrictions arising from minority. First, pay attention to how the law actually defines a child. It's not just anybody under 18. It explicitly includes anyone 18 or older who's unable to fully take care of themselves or protect themselves from abuse or exploitation due to a physical or mental disability. Lacking the capacity to act isn't some sort of punishment. It is a vital, essential shield. Because of this, the state mandates that acts with huge consequences, like marriage, require the absolutely free and full consent of fully capacitated parties. Therefore, child betrothal and child marriage have absolutely zero legal effect. They are what the law calls void ab initio, meaning they're totally void from the very beginning. Legally speaking, they never even happened.
And let me tell you, the law backs up this restriction with absolute severity. Let me read this quote directly to you from Section 5 of the implementing rules. Anyone who causes, fixes, facilitates, arranges, or officiates a child marriage, or an adult who cohabits with a child, shall suffer the penalty of prison mayor and substantial fines. This is incredibly stark. Prison mayor? That means serious, long-term imprisonment. The state removes the capacity to act for minors specifically to protect them, and it brings down severe criminal consequences on literally anyone who tries to exploit a person lacking that legal capacity. The shield is heavily, heavily guarded.
Which brings us to the end of our explainer today, and to a thought I really want to leave you with. We've seen how meticulously the law defines our existence, and how carefully it guards our transition into having the actual capacity to act. It holds back our legal power until we are actually deemed ready to wield it. So my question for you is, if the law painstakingly defines when our power begins in order to protect us, how responsibly are we using that power now that we actually have it? Every contract you sign, every entity you create, every obligation you undertake is a testament to that acquired power. Use it wisely. Thanks so much for exploring this with me, and keep learning.